4D Angel with Moving Acrylic Wings by Hotpinkzebrapolish. Hi everyone, so in today's video I am doing a 4-dimensional angel, and so the 4-dimensional aspect of this is that her wings move, and the little mechanism that I created here, it took me so long to figure out how to do this. I've been thinking of this design for a couple months, trying to figure out all the little inner workings of how to do it, and a pen was sacrificed for the making of this video, which is sad. So the pen was sacrificed because I used a little spring underneath, and so it's all stuff that is relatively easy to find or you could have on hand to make this. I hope you like it, and don't forget to click subscribe to see my future videos as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take and cut 2 pieces of wire that are about twice the length of the nail that I'm going to be using, and then I'm going to take a couple little nail or jewelry tools. I'm going to bend it first into an L shape and then bend it again. So I'm going to grab it just below the bend and then bend it up, creating a little Z shape. So I'm going to do that on both of them. So first bend it into an L and then grab it just past the bend and then pull that part up just like that to create your Z shape. And they should fit together just like so. So they're about the same. The little height of the middle part is about the same, and you don't want that very big at all. So now I'm going to mark on the nail right past the tip of my finger would be, and then I'm going to drill a little hole in that right in the center, but you want to make sure that it is past your fingertip. If this is not past your fingertip, it's not going to work. And of course, if you're doing this on nail, you're going to know if it's past your fingertip or not, because you're going to drill into your finger if it isn't. If you're doing it like I am and it's not actually on, then you just need to make sure that it's past there so that everything can work out. So then you're going to cover it up with a layer of blue acrylic, and you want to make sure not to fill in that hole that you just made, or you're going to have to reopen that up because you need that hole. It's very important for this. It will not be seen though in the final design. It's kind of a inner workings thing. So then I'm going to add a layer of clear acrylic over the top of this, once again making sure that I am avoiding that hole at all costs, because I already filed that out. I don't need to do it again. It's not the end of the world, but you can see it from there. And so I'm going to get that so it's nice and strong, even though I don't intend on wearing this and it is borderline whether or not it would be wearable. You just want to make sure it's strong, so in case it was dropped or something, that'd be horrible. Hopefully it's not going to break. So now I'm going to be filing it with a 180 grit file to remove any lumps, bumps, and imperfections, and then buffing it with a 240 grit padded buffer just to make sure that all the scratches are removed, and then applying a layer of gel sealer and throwing that into my lamp to cure. So now I'm going to grab my little pieces of wire and I'm going to fit them in. So they're going to fit, and the reason I had to have that bend in there is so that they can go through the nail and still come out about straight. So that's what that little Z shape is for, if that makes sense, because of the way that the nail is. You want to make sure that it still fits that way. And then the parts that are going to be the wings, which are the parts that are going up through the nail, you're going to want to bend them so that they kind of go up and down. So the part that's bent up is going to be about the angel's shoulder, and then the part that comes down is going to be the wing. So you can just put those back in and see how they work, and you can give it a little test wiggle. It's really hard to tell at this point how it's going to work just the way it is, but you can just see how that goes. See how I'm just testing it, seeing how the movement is, making sure that the bends on the wings up above are right. So I'm going to tape the wings in place and flip it over, and to tape them in place just so it's not wiggling while you're doing this other stuff. And then using my pen spring that I said I sacrificed a pen for, which it was really hard for me. I don't like doing stuff like that. Killing a pen, it seemed like a wasted life. I'm just going to see how long I need my spring to be, since it is a little bit longer than I need it, and I'm going to cut off the excess, and then I'm going to make sure that those little wire pieces are in the place that I want them. They're spread out the right and even from side to side, and then cut off a little bit on the other end just to make sure it fits and there's not so much overhang, and then lay that on there and then secure it to the wire that you bent into the Z shape with just some clear acrylic, and make sure that you use a sufficient amount of clear acrylic so that as you're bending it and you're using it, it's not going to separate. So make sure it goes all the way around both pieces of the clear or of the wire, just to really hold in place. Trim off the excess wire like that, and then you can remove the tape and give your wings a test. So then, as you can see, it wiggles back and forth and it's not really staying in place. So I decided I would secure it to the nail. So then just on the underside of the nail, right in the middle there at the very tip, I'm going to create a little platform out of clear acrylic. So I'm just going to put, I think I used 3 beads, now I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure. And I just stacked them up and make sure that they're pretty thin, but they come out pretty tall so that they're flush with the corners of the nail. So I'm just going to bring them up just so that it's going to set there nicely. And I actually used way more than 3 beads as I'm watching myself do this. If you used bigger beads, you could use less. So I'm going to have that platform there, and then I'm going to set the spring on them and right in the center of it. So I want to make sure that this is centered. So at the center of the spring, attach it to that little platform you just made with more yet clear acrylic. This is also going to make sure that the wings move at the same rate from side to side, because the spring can't, you can't push the right side all the way to the left side, so only one wing moves. As you push them together, they're both going to move, and it's going to have a more uniform appearance. So now your spring is permanently attached to that nail, and so is the wire now. And so then I'm going to trim the wings to the length that I want them. I don't want them so crazy long, and then place a nail form backing underneath. So this is almost like wax paper, and I actually did try, so many people have asked me about the nail form backings. What are they? Where can I get them? Is there any substitutes? And a nail form, I'd say, is the best substitute for the nail form backing. Just the other day, yesterday, I was working on a different project. I'm thinking, well, I'm going to see if wax paper works, because I had wax paper beneath me under my work surface anyway, because I'm a total slob when I'm painting. And so I just had that to protect my table. But I decided I'd try it, and it does work. It doesn't work as well, but it does work. So with that being said, you can definitely use that instead. But it seems like it's not quite as slippery, and so the acrylic does come off, but it tugs a little more, if that makes sense. So anyways, once the nail form backing is underneath there, I'm going to go through and I'm going to just start adding the white acrylic to my wing, starting by covering up that wire, because I want to make sure that that's not seen. And then I'm going to go through and add each individual feather. So I'm going to place down a bead, let it set for a second. That's when I split in half, and then push them together to form all of those little individual feathers in sections of the wing. And I did 2 rows. So this is going to be the lower row, and then after I'm done with that, I'll go back through and I'll add the upper row. And as I'm doing this, I will apologize for the really wacky lighting that you are going to see here in a minute. There's a window kind of next to me where I work, and in the summer it does not interfere with what I am doing in the least. You cannot tell that. It doesn't matter what time of day it is, as long as the light's on above me, it looks fine. That window, the sun, it's all fine. I'm going to say fine about 20 times right there. But now that with daylight savings and winter approaching, the sun goes right through that window and it hits me, and it causes a lot of problems. It creates these weird looking shadows like you can see here. It makes it so that I am practically blind because it shines right in my face. And I have created some very interesting stacks of stuff next to me to try to block it. I know that once I stacked up I have a fairly square UV light. I put that up, and then I had boxes of acrylic, and I had all this stuff stacked up trying to block the light for me, and it's worthless because it just doesn't work. So yeah, so as you can see, I sculpted out my wings, and I created 2 of those, one on each side. But then I'm going to take a little piece, and this is of poster putty. I'm just going to see it to make sure it's about the right size that the body is, and give it a nice rounded shape. So it's tapered at the bottom and it's nice and thick in the middle. And you want to make sure that it's going to be rounder and long enough to go up and over all the wire and the wings without touching it once you have the acrylic on there. So once I have that into a shape that I like, I'm going to wrap it up in some saran wrap. And then I'm going to cover just the very top surface of it with some white acrylic. And that first bead I grabbed, in case you're wondering why I put that on and took it off, it was clear, and I didn't want it to be clear acrylic, and I put that on and ew, that's the wrong thing. So yeah, just cover with white acrylic and let that set. And you probably are going to have to hold it with that plastic wrap, so that, because once you let go of the plastic wrap, it unfurls and it just messes up what you're doing. So make sure you hold that on there while it's setting. But then when it's about 90% set, you're going to peel it off and then glue it onto the nail. So put a little drop of glue below the wings and above the wings, and then glue that into place. And as you can see, this is probably more difficult for me than other people. It didn't want to stay. It would much rather have just stuck to my fingers. I don't know. Glue and me, we don't agree. So then on a nail form backing, once again, I'm going to be sculpting out the skirt for my angel. So I just put a bead down that's a little bit larger, and then created a triangle out of it with rounded corners. You don't have to have super sharp corners. And I'm going to leave that there, let it set, just let it do its thing. And then when it's about 50% starting to turn matte, I'm going to press my brush in segments and give it sort of a nice rounded billowy shape, and then let it set again for a second, just enough that it's going to hold that shape that we gave it. And then I'm going to pick it up with my brush, and I'm going to set it on the nail, And then I'm going to make sure that it does not touch the wings or the spring. So I'm just going to look at it from the sides and pick it up a little bit, as you can see, just to make sure that it's not going to hang on to anything. Because if any of those pieces get stuck to this angel, the middle part in her skirt, it's not going to work. So then taking more white acrylic, I'm just going to smooth out between her body and her skirt because it was a little funky looking right there. And I'm going to smooth out her body shape as well. That little piece we made was really thin, so I'm just going to add a little more thickness to it. And I'm also going to be sculpting out her arms. So for her arms, I'm going to actually do that in a second, but I just gave them like a nice rounded appearance. And I'm also going to add her head. If you wanted to, later on I decided I would rather have had her head a little bit farther down the nail, but I'm really happy with the way it turned out. Regardless, it just I think would have looked a little better if it was a little farther down. But then as you can see now, I'm going to be adding her arms. So I'm going to place those beads down and sort of pull them out to the sides. With these, once again, make sure that they do not touch the wings. And like I said, I made them kind of in a rounded shape so it looked like she had her hands clasped right like around her ribs, like so. And then I'm going to fix up her skirt again one more time, smoothing out the little connections between the pieces, make sure her wings are still working. Whenever I'm doing something that's 3D or 4D or has moving parts that I don't want to get stuck together, periodically I go through and I just move stuff around, make sure everything is still working, because you don't want to get all the way to the end and realize that something that could have been preventable you didn't check, and then all of a sudden you're glued together, and that's no fun. So just make sure every once in a while, as you can see, I'm doing it again, making sure it works, and just checking out how it looks, make sure everything looks right. And then above her head, I'm going to be adding a halo. So I just placed down a really small bead, let that set for a second, then using the tip of my brush, carved out the center of it and gave it that nice oval. So now I'm going to be using white paint and I'm going to be highlighting my angel, and I'm going to highlight the high points. So I'm going to highlight first the very tops of her wings and then go through and highlight her arms, and some on her face or her head and her halo, and then those high points on the skirt that we sculpted out. So any point that's got a little bit thicker acrylic, I'm going to add some white acrylic paint to it just to give it, like I said, a highlight, and that's going to really emphasize the 3D work you did. And I'm going to take and I'm going to add a little highlight to each of those feathers. Once again, without highlighting them, you know that they're there and you can see them, but it's not nearly as evident. But once you add that little highlight to them, they really stand out and it shows off all that hard work you put into it so much better. And so then I'm going to just take I mixed some gel sealer with some white glitter, and I'm going to apply that everywhere I applied the acrylic paint. This is going to seal in the acrylic paint, give all those highlights a nice little glitz to them. I didn't put in too much glitter, just a little bit, like I said, to give them a sparkle. And it's also going to make it so that those points are shiny, but everywhere that doesn't have the acrylic paint is going to be more of a satin or a matte finish, which is once again going to really emphasize all of those highlights you gave it and all of the detail work you did. With a white design like this where it's all white on white, these little subtle things like between matte and shiny and the different tones of white are really going to be what makes your design stand out. So you want to make sure that you add all those subtleties that are really going to make the difference. And so after you have all that done, you can throw that into your lamp and cure it one final time. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching this design. Like I said, it was months in the making, and I am so happy with the way it turned out. I think the movement of her wings is something that I'm just really pleased with. So I hope you like it too. And if you would like to share your recreations with me on Facebook and Instagram, I would really love to see them. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!